Cali X Boxing 2.0. Like, sub, hit that alert. Boxing fans speaking to other boxing fans about how we can further our agenda as boxing fans. This is a no fanager zone. Leave your fanager talking points at the door. Canelo versus Ryder, Deontay Wilder, heavyweight tournaments, Regis Prograde, free agency, fundamentals of boxing. We're going to get into all of that on this show. Enjoy the intro and let's lock and load. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Hope everybody's been having a great week. This Canelo fight week, so it's a big week in boxing. Shout out JC in the building. Team Batman Boxing. Appreciate you rolling through as well. Yep, it's Canelo fight week. And make sure y'all are hitting that like button as y'all roll through and get those comments up. I'm getting all the comments today. Get those comments up. Don't expect much out of Ryder. And we'll get into that, and we'll get into that even deeper tomorrow as we get into betting odds. Stylistic breakdowns. Who is John Ryder as a fighter? Because I don't hear much of that this week. It's almost a foregone conclusion that this guy's going to get just wiped the mat with against Canelo, and that's possible. But John Ryder's a good fighter, and we'll get into that more tomorrow as far as stylistically. Who is this guy? What is his resume? What are we to expect of him on Saturday night? And through that, we'll give you the betting odds and where your value should be as far as betting on Saturday. And why is a Mando pay-per-view? I'm canceling my DAZN. You're going to see some of that too, especially after the Tank versus Ryan thing, is people frustrated with DAZN and saying, you know, we're not going to order this fight after we went through what we went through with issues with the Tank and Ryan fight. That's just going to be there. Salute to Knockout Ned. Coco the Bulldog, appreciate you rolling through. Hit that like button as y'all swing through. Good morning to Nando. Always appreciate Nando coming through. Logan Little in the building as well. So make sure y'all getting those comments in because we're getting all the comments today. This is going to be a comment type show. Get to all the comments. Get those like buttons up as well. And as always, most of you will be watching this in the archive, so make sure you are leaving your comments below. Been getting a lot of archive comments as well, so that's good. And this is going to be one of those fundamental shows. Like, what do we love as boxing fans? What do we navigate towards? What just naturally, subconsciously as boxing fans do we see and go, don't like that. Don't like that. And there's a lot of current event stuff going on. Deontay Wilder got popped for riding dirty throughout LA yesterday. That news broke. Regis Prograde, a possible 3-fight deal with Matchroom. How does all of this align? Shockey Foster becoming a free agent, likely, going to be fielding offers himself at 130. So a lot going on, and we're going to align it all here in this show. And Floyd versus Manny, yesterday was the 8-year anniversary of that fight. And I think that's important to highlight because if there was ever a fight that was over-marinated, it was that one. And the reason we enjoy this dude up here, and, it's backwards, but that dude right there is that M word, that marination doesn't come up as much when he is involved. As I always highlight, when Canelo is involved in something, if you don't like his next fight, if you don't like the fight after that, he's going to get to the fight that's in demand within 12 to 18 months. So this is what I've been preaching to the Benavidez fans out there is, look, don't worry. You're going to get your fight. You're going to get your fight. It's in demand. You're going to get your fight. When that guy is involved, marination, and particularly over marination, is not involved. When it came to Floyd and Manny, 6 years. When it came to Errol versus Bud, 6 years. And one guy was involved. There was a common denominator in that. His name rhymes with Shal Shaman. Marination. Marination. We heard Samson talk about it, right? I marinated that fight for 5 years. Benavidez versus Plant. Marination. So if people say things like this, and shout out to CY, I have no interest in this Canelo fight. The good news for you is you'll likely get a fight next that you're interested in. And if not that one, it'll be the next one. And he's active. Money magnifies. Money magnifies. We'll talk about it with Tank in the Hispanic B-side. We'll talk about that today. Is money magnifies who you are. So if a fighter tells you who he is over a decade worth of time, expect more of that, particularly if that fighter has success in doing it. So if Tank has success and he has a $1.2 million pay-per-view with a $22 million live gate, and he's had a certain resume up until that point, expect for that type of resume to continue on into the future. Don't expect a 180. Money magnifies. It magnifies. Believe me on that. Money magnifies. Believe me. It magnifies. Whatever you got from a person when they were poor or when they were middle class, expect even more of that. When they get rich, when they get wealthy, expect more of it. When they have success. And when it comes to Tank Davis, the beautiful thing about Canelo Alvarez, in contrast, is he doesn't move like a dude who's on the Forbes list. No, I brought this up yesterday and we ruffled some feathers with it, but this is the Forbes list right here. And people are going to say, oh, you were pocket. No. There's no pocket watching here. What we're doing here is showing you that there are narratives, and there are narratives that need to die. You need to push back on narratives. We tried the thing here on the YTBC where we let those dudes just be carried away. Just let them be carried away. Just let them be over there in their short bus circle jerks. And, they'll eventually wither down and go away, but that's not what happens, right? It becomes more tribal. Their tribe grows. And as they do, the narratives start to build. And as Nando always says, YTBC is not real life. Twitter's not real life. You're right. When I go to a Canelo fight, I don't see these dudes. Canelo, when I go to his fight, when I go to good fights, the boxing fans are happy. That's not the dudes on Twitter who are just miserable. I guess they don't have money to travel to the fights. They do these 6-hour lives just disparaging certain fighters, pushing their narratives. But that's not real life. But we need to make sure that these narratives don't grow. And the reason I bring up a tweet like this is NBA Central brought this up yesterday, and they brought it up because multiple NBA players are in the top 10 Forbes list. And number 5 right there, it seems like Tank Davis' name is misspelled because I've been told that Tank Davis is the face of boxing. Oh, Calix, you're talking about the face of boxing again. No. This is what we do. It's an extreme narrative that Tank Davis is the face of boxing, and it's disrespectful to the ultimate boxing fan because it's patently and completely false. And I don't like when people mispackage things and lie to the public because they're doing it for a reason. And they're doing it at the expense of hardcore boxing fans because Canelo is the face of boxing. He got there for a reason, and it's been sustainable for a reason. So Tank Davis's name is not misspelled there. That name is Canelo Alvarez. He's the only fighter in the sport that's on the top 10 pound for pound list, and he got there for a reason. 110 million. And this is from May 1st to May 1st, 2022 to 2023. 110 million. The year before that, it was 90 million. How has he been able to keep this up? How has he been able to sustain these numbers for 10 years? And on top of that, it's like we said, money magnifies. So a decade ago, Canelo was concerned with legacy. And the beautiful thing about Canelo is we see that same Canelo, the 2013 Canelo in 2023. 2020-23 Canelo very much resembles 2013 Canelo. And I find it's the same way with all these fighters, or almost all of them. It's the same guy you saw a decade ago is likely the same guy you're going to get a decade later because the money magnifies it. And I'll contrast it to what we're seeing with the Tank Davis. Why they need to lie to the public. And the reason you push back on it is because when you do that, when I say, no, look who's number 5, there are metrics you go by to say who is the face of boxing. And then, they might push back on it a little, but you push back and then they'll say something like, no, it's okay, but there can be multiple faces of boxing. And that's what you want to hear, right? Because you want to hear them give in first. You don't give in. They give in because they're wrong. You say, okay, there's been points throughout boxing history. In fact, it's always been that way where you have multiple stars in the sport. And it's good that Tank's the sport is a star. It's good that Ryan's a star. It's good that they can put up numbers. That's good. That's good. We can meet in the middle there. But you make them come to the middle first. And that's how you do it. You push back on the narratives and you make sure these narratives don't find their way into the mainstream. That's why you push back on them. You show them stuff like this. Look, Canelo. He's putting up the numbers and he's doing it sustainably. And if you want to continue to do it sustainably, you have to carry yourself in a certain way. Comments here. Shout out Bruce Gas. Most folks I know in real life were skeptical of Canelo, but we eventually won over. Never any goofy hate. Calix spitting facts as always. Appreciate you rolling through. Typo, Tank Nello, Alva Davis. The spelled Tank's name wrong. Lies unchallenged become truth. See, this is why I love the chat, is you can put it in better terms than I can. You can put the terminology and the words together better than I can. That's exactly it. Lies unchallenged become the truth. They become the truth. And we can't allow them to become the truth. No matter where we fight, we got to fight it. And yes, as Nando says, and I've been out to the fights. I go out and support the fighters. I'm going to another fight in a couple of weeks. And you see happy people there just enjoying their fights with their kids, with their fathers, with their grandfathers, multiple generations, just enjoying the fights and supporting the fighters and supporting the fights. But then you go back to Twitter and you're like, who are these people? Who are these dudes in the YTBC? Who are these dudes in the LBDBC just constantly projecting? And when I say money magnifies, let me show you a short clip. This is going to be a short clip, and this is Leonard Ellerbe 3 years ago. And it's important to highlight because I think the Leonard Ellerbe, first let me play the clip. Let me share the clip. This is Leonard Ellerbe 3 years ago, just speaking, because this is what he does. This is pre-Santa Claus look Leonard Ellerbe.
Tank is a world champion, and he's nobody's mandatory. Any way you look at it, you say this, Tank ain't nobody's mandatory. We call it all the shots in anything we do. Tank is a world champion, and he's nobody's mandatory.
Nobody's.
Any way you look at it, you say this, Tank ain't nobody's mandatory.
Nope,
we call it all the shots in anything we do.
We call all the shots in everything we do. Is what he's saying. We call all the shots. This is Leonard Ellerbe. And you can say Leonard Ellerbe is not the promoter anymore. He was fired. And by the way, out of the kindness of his own heart, Leonard Ellerbe worked for free. That's fine. I've never seen anything like that, by the way. Leonard Ellerbe gets fired, and then he pops up on Fight Week and then promotes the fight for free, I'm assuming. Or maybe Tank gave him a little bit of money, and he's still out there acting like the promoter, even though he's not the promoter as of right now that I know. Never seen anything like it. And he's having a victory lap and like he's the one who did it. But it is what it is. But what he's saying here is those rules don't apply to us. Tank's above that. Tank, we're not worried about the real belts. What happened after he beat Matteo Barrios? I believe it was Ness. Ness from Boxing Voices asked him, what are the real pay-per-view numbers? He's like, I got them in my suitcase. You don't need to see them. You don't need to see them. I'm only privy to those numbers. All right, fine. Then he asked him about Josh Taylor. You fought Matteo Barrios for a Reggie belt. What about Josh Taylor? And then Leonard Ellerbe starts to go on about, what's he say? He says, he doesn't bring anything to the table for us. He needs to get his numbers up. So when I hear Calvin Ford do this same thing, this is Calvin Ford this week. But remember, money magnifies. Shakur's on the radar, Lomachenko's on the radar, Devin Haney is on the radar, but they got to get their numbers up. This is Tank Davis's. And why is this funny? It's funny, obviously, because anybody with any type of critical thinking will see this. What are they going to say? Did Mario Barrios have to get his numbers up? Did Raleigh Romero have to get his numbers up? It goes back to Josh Taylor. It's like Mario Barrios was good enough. He brought enough to the table for a Tank Davis fight. So why not Josh Taylor? He's a better fighter. He's ranked higher. He's the guy who owns all of the hardware in the division currently. And where are we sitting at now? Devin Haney holds all of the hardware in the division now. And I'm going to wrap all this around back to Canelo Alvarez. It's going to all come back to Canelo Alvarez. Is when somebody tells you who you are, you trust them. When somebody tells you who they are through their actions, you trust them. And the money, the success isn't going to change that. It's going to magnify it. And Leonard Ellerbe, even more so. You saw him 3 years ago. That was 3 years ago, before $1.2 million pay-per-view buy. 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. 22.8 live gate. Now it's magnified 6 times over. Now they're really carrying their chests out. Devin Haney, no. He doesn't bring anything to the table. Shakur's on the radar. Lomachenko's on the radar. Devin Haney's on the radar, but they got to get their numbers up. Do you hear Canelo speak like this? Do you hear Canelo say that guy's got to get his numbers up? No, because he more aligns with boxing fans in his viewpoints of the sport. And this is why we need to appreciate guys like that when they're around. Right? Is they think of it more as a sport and as far as legacy. I'll give you a specific example. Benavidez is a bigger fight. Benavidez stylistically, a better fight, and stylistically, a better matchup for Canelo Alvarez. But he'd rather go fight the Bivol fight. Why? Because he knows, he believes it's a stain on his resume to leave that loss a loss. He's got to get the get back. He's not out there saying, yeah, I lost to Bivol, but he doesn't bring anything to the table financially. No. Instead, what you're getting is stuff like this. Where's it at? This is Steve Kim yesterday speaking to Dimitri Bivol's manager. Bivol's manager is saying the goal right now is to have a July-August date. The Canelo situation is being discussed as well, but right now we're more focused on making sure that he stays in the ring for July-August. And what I hear when I hear something like that is Dimitri Bivol's manager is just coming out publicly and just throwing stuff out there as leverage. And, you know, Nando in the chat, when it comes to Bivol, will say the water eventually comes back to level, right? What he means by that is people tell you who they are, and then they eventually come back to it. And money magnifies it, success magnifies it. So when you see a Dimitri Bivol and he's acted a certain way up until this point, while we watched Dimitri Bivol fight against Canelo, against Zurdo last year, and we say, all right, he's breaking through now. He's breaking through more into the mainstream. More people know him now. And, you know, that once or twice per year against okay opposition is going to go out the window. But what has happened instead? Inactivity again. Reverting back to type. These games in the media. Canelo doesn't understand this stuff, man. I'm telling you, I try to tell this to his detractors all the time. What was this one right here yesterday? I'm just trying to educate the Canelo detractors and people who don't get it, people who don't understand boxing and real boxing fans and how we think and why we align with certain fighters who give us what we want. And, you know, they view the sport much like we do. And they're not perfect. We're not saying they are, but for the most part, they view the sport in which we do. And he's saying, you know, everyone will start fucking talking. Everyone's going to fucking start saying, oh, but he bought him down in weight. That's why Bivol lost, but they didn't say anything what I bought it. What he's saying is, I want to fight the dude at his best. I want to fight him at his best. You know, if I go down to 168, they'll say I'm draining him. If I go up and fight him at 175, I'm not putting my belts on the line. It's a no-win situation, and that comes with the face of boxing. We're not going to pull out the small violins, but when it comes to Bivol, going back to Bivol, is fighters revert back to type. And when I see this, I see Dimitri Bivol wants the Canelo bag, and they're trying to get as much out of negotiation as possible. They're not interested in doing a July, August date like they're saying. They're not going to drop the Canelo bag. This is all leverage. This is all negotiations being played out publicly. But the thing that I value about Canelo and I like about Canelo, as opposed to what I'm seeing with some of these fighters, is when some of these fighters have success, it gets to their head. You see a dude making $110 million in a year. The year before that, $90 million in a year. This dude made $200 million in the past 2 years. $200 million, fellas. And on top of that, he's going to make another $100 million this year. Possibly plus, because like I said, it goes from May 1st to May 1st. So you're talking about a dude who's going to make $300 million plus in a 3-year span, and he's still acting like the dude he was 10 years ago. He's still concerned with legacy. He's not out there saying, yeah, Bivol doesn't bring anything to the table financially. He's got to get his numbers up. Better B's got to get his numbers up. You know, Benavidez, just imagine if Canelo did this. Just imagine, close your eyes and imagine if Canelo said, Benavidez, he only did 49,000 pay-per-view buys against Plant, 3 million live gate, whatever it was, because we don't even know that number either. He's got to get his numbers up if he wants this fight. Imagine if he did that. Imagine the spasms that these dudes would have. Imagine it if he said something like that. And this is how you can tell when somebody's face of boxing is the expectations are higher and they're not honest about why their expectations are higher of Canelo than they are of Tank Davis. People reverting back to type, money magnifying. I'm telling you, like, if Devin Haney, I'm just bringing this up for contrast. Look at this resume here. Garcia, Romero, Cruz, Barrios, Cruz, Gamboa, Nunez, Ruiz, Queller, Fonseca, and you have the token white guy there, Liam Walsh, right? They'll call him a Eurobun. Well, what do you see when you see that resume? You see vulnerable fighters. There are two things that they all have in common. Vulnerable, one, and number two, they're all Hispanic. Right? So why do I bring that up? One, it's going to tell us where they go in the future. Remember, money magnifies. If a fighter tells you who he is over a certain period of time, you believe him. And you trust that he's going to continue. You leave the door open that they can make a 180, but you trust that they're going to continue to go down that route, especially when you start to hear things like Shakur needs to get his numbers up. Devin needs to get his numbers up. They're not actually saying these guys need to get their numbers up. They're saying, translation, they're too risky. Those fighters are too risky. Devin's too risky. Shakur's too risky. Lomachenko's too risky. So what do these three guys in particular need to do if they want a tank fight, if track record serves true in the future? One, they need to start looking vulnerable. Devin Haney needs to figure out a way not only to beat Lomachenko, but to look vulnerable while doing it. It's almost impossible to do. How do you beat Lomachenko and look vulnerable at the same time? That's the only possible way, conceivable way that he can possibly get the tank fight next for undisputed. Shakur Stevenson has to win a fight, but he's got to look vulnerable doing it. He needs to get knocked down. He needs to look ugly in these fights in order for Tank's team to say, all right, because they're lying about this. Shakur's numbers are up. Shakur had 10,000 fans plus at his last two fights. His numbers are going up. Devin's numbers are going up. Lomachenko's numbers have been there. Lomachenko needs to continue to look vulnerable and beat Devin Haney. Beat Devin Haney and look vulnerable at the same time. That's what these guys need to do in order to get this fight. They need to look vulnerable. Number two, they need to somehow identify as being Hispanic because Al Heyman has a hard-on for Hispanic B-sides. We know that. And this tells us that. They have built the model in which you can only fight Hispanic fighters if you're Tank Davis. That's the model. That's one of the criteria. You have to be Hispanic. And this isn't me just saying this, fellas. Look at it. It's right there in front of your face. And this is what I say about the LDBC channels is they project. They're saying this stuff about Canelo Alvarez when it's one of their favorite fighters doing it. They'll say things like Canelo Alvarez doesn't fight slick black fighters. Where are they? They don't exist in and around 168. Sorry to break it to you, Charlo's not slick. Boo Boo Andre doesn't fight anybody, so we don't know if he's slick. It goes even further with Tank. It's not just that he's not fighting slick black fighters. He's not fighting black fighters at all. He's not fighting non-slick black fighters. And it's hilarious, one, because it's true. And number two, they don't want to hear it. That's why I bring it up. But I bring it up because this is what we expect going forward. Is in order for Devin Haney to get the fight with Tank Davis, he needs to beat Lomachenko and look bad. And number two, at the same time, it's just impossible. And number two, he's got to identify as a Cuban-American fighter or something. He's got to go Rosetta Stone, Babbel app, whatever he's got to do and learn some Espanol. He's going to have to do it. Me llamo es Devin Haney. Yo quiero el rehydration clauses. You know, he's got to learn. He's got to learn how to do a post-fight interview in Spanish. And then when Al Heyman sees the fight and he sees Devin Haney speaking Spanish, he'll get a hard-on. Oh, my God. He looked vulnerable. He's got all the belts, and he's Hispanic. Woo! We got Tank Davis's next opponent. He start calling around. We got Tank Davis's next opponent. Cuban-American fighter. All the belts. Yo quiero el Reggie belt. Shakur Stevenson really needs to play this Puerto Rican angle. Me llamo es Shakur Stevenson. Yo quiero el catch weight. ¿Cómo se dice Reggie belt? ¿Cómo se dice regular champion? Champion del regular. You know, they got to learn Spanish. Vasily Lomachenko is going to have to identify as, you know, maybe a light-skinned Dominican. Because that's one thing Canelo or Tank doesn't fight either. He doesn't fight Eastern Europeans with lateral movement. He just doesn't. I mean, it just is what it is, fellas. Like, that's the model. That's the model they've chosen. And money magnifies, and they're not going to go away from it. Devin Haney needs to somehow, it's impossible, but he's going to have to somehow figure this out if he wants to Tank Davis fight. He's got to beat Vasily Lomachenko, look vulnerable at the same time, because the two things that all of Tank Davis's opponents have in common is, one, they look vulnerable, two, they're all Hispanic. So he's got to look vulnerable beating Vasily Lomachenko, and he's got to learn some Espanol. He's got to identify as Cuban. I mean, just pick one. Pick one. Just, you know, do that thing where you close your eyes, go across Central America, South American, whatever. Say you're Chilean, say you're Dominican, whatever it is, Honduran. Just say something. Just pick one. But say you're a Cuban-American undisputed champion at 135. Do your post-fight interview. Learn some Espanol. You know, me llamo es Devin Haney. Yo quiero el catchways. Yo quiero el rehydration clauses. Como se dice Reggie belt? You know, he's got to be doing this stuff. Vasily Lomachenko, identify as a light-skinned Dominican. Shakur Stevenson, look vulnerable, even get knocked down once or twice in the fight, and then come out in the press conference, the post-fight interview, and say, you know, really play the Puerto Rican angle. Me llamo es Shakur Stevenson. Yo quiero el catchweight. I should be these dudes' managers. If you want the Tank fight, that's what you got to do. Just learn a couple. Like, that's what Ryan does wrong. He doesn't reach out as much to the Mexican audience. They'll ask him, the dude asked Ryan before the Tank fight. He's like, you have a message to the Mexican fans? And Ryan's like, we're going to go for it. We're going to do it. Viva Mexico. It's like, no, Ryan, no. Just learn a couple things. Just learn some random sentences, bro. Some talking points. And that's all Shakur and Devin needs to do. Look vulnerable and just learn a couple sentences in Espanol. All you need to learn is Me llamo es Shakur Stevenson. Yo quiero el rehydration clauses. Look vulnerable at the same time, and you may get that fight. And that's that. Light-skinned Dominican, I'm telling you. Maybe there is hope for, I don't know. Williams Zepeda's not looking vulnerable enough. If somebody tells you who they are, you believe them, fellas. You believe them. By the way, y'all make sure y'all hitting that like button. Loma Chalengo from Mexico. PBC signed Andre to a one-fight tune-up deal last year. Then Boo Boo dipped out and disappeared. This is what I'm saying. Trust these guys when they tell you who they are. And when you have fighters who are around, who are behaving like fighters, behaving like champions, behaving like old school fighters, you gotta appreciate them when they're around. We talk about the Chocolatitos, the Gallo Estradas, the Canelo Alvarez's, the Tim Bradleys when he was around, the Carl Froches, the Pernell Whitakers, the Oscar De La Hoyas. Those were guys that behaved like fighters, and they maximized their potential. And on top of that, they reaped the rewards from it on the other end. Financially, they were paid for it. And the issue people are going to find, the Tank Sexuals, the extreme Tank Davis fans, the issue they're going to have going forward is this blueprint that they've used is not sustainable going forward. You look at the top paid fighters in the sport, Canelo Alvarez, but then you look at the heavyweights. Watch what these heavyweights make in December. They're talking about this heavyweight tournament that's possibly happening in December. And it makes sense if you watch how these fighters are moving right now, that possibly Deontay Wilder is going to fight Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury is going to fight Usyk on the same day in some sort of small tournament. You watch what those fighters are going to get paid. You watch. And my fear for Tank Davis is his team is going to take him right back to the same model, and he's going to go back down to making 200,000 pay-per-view buys, $6 to $7 million live gates, and the guy should be making way more because he is a guy who flies off at the screen. He is a guy who is entertaining, has entertainment value, is marketable. And more people should know who he is. But he doesn't fight non-Hispanic fighters, and he doesn't fight guys who are a threat. When I hear Leonard talk, when I hear Floyd talk, when I hear these guys talk around him, and you don't hear Al talk, unfortunately, but what they're telling you when you hear them say, Devin's got to get his numbers up, Shakur's got to get his numbers up, Lomachenko's got to get their numbers up. What they're really saying is there's too much risk involved there. The reward doesn't match the risk because Barrios' numbers weren't up. Raleigh, Isaac Cruz, these guys were not putting up numbers. But it's like Ness was telling that caller one day. And he's like, I don't know how we're going to do this Tank versus Devin fight and how we're going to make this fight because, one guy's got the belts, one guy's the A side. And Ness is like, this stuff only comes up when there's a threat. Nobody talks like this when we're talking about a Mario Barrios or a Hector Luis Garcia. It only comes up when Devin Haney's name is mentioned, or Shakur Stevens' name is mentioned, or Lomachenko, or Regis Prograis, or Josh Taylor. Then it's, How are we going to make this fit? How are we going to do the numbers? How are we going to do this? What are we going to do? You know, how are we going to make this fight? The politics and blah, blah, blah. It only becomes an issue when there's a real threat. It only becomes an issue when there's a real threat. I respect Bivol talent, but dude was an afterthought at 175 for years for a reason. And that's the thing. And he's got tough sledding with the current climate, Russian fighter, and how the WBC is acting. And they're acting like Bivol versus Beterbiev can't be made. I think it's a lot to do with that. And, you know, he's got some wins to go against. But at the same time, when they've been behaving like that for so many years, and I've become a fan of Bivol over the past year, but at the same time, man, you got to take that momentum and run with it, and they're not doing that. They seem to be behaving as, you know, we're just going to leverage to get as much as we can get out of this Canelo fight. These guys aren't spring chickens, man. A Beterbiev isn't a spring chicken. I'm seeing too many fighters as a boxing fan just get their money, get their bag, and then get inactive, not aligning with the boxing fans anymore. You look at a Deontay Wilder who was caught riding dirty yesterday. And when it comes to that, he's going to get a slap on the wrist. He's paid. He's got a team behind him. He'll get a slap on the wrist. He'll be fine for December. Don't worry about that. But, you know, as far as the event, just some non-boxing thoughts. You know, you can't go into the beautiful thing about America is the 50 different states are almost behave like 50 different countries. And that's a beautiful thing, right? All politics should be local. Okay, so you can't maneuver around California the way you can around Alabama. I don't expect somebody. I went to California 6-7 years ago. I'm going back in 2 months, and it was almost like somebody dropped me off on Mars. Everything's completely different. Things are a little more uptight than they are in South Louisiana, where we buy trucks. I bought a truck last year with a gun safe in the middle. It's normal for us, but you might not want to be riding around California with an unregistered 9mm in your car. You have to respect the culture. You have to respect what they do over there. It just is what it is. But at the end of the day, he's going to get a slap on the wrist. He'll be fine. Got caught riding dirty, got popped, made a mistake. Should probably have a bodyguard around him. If he's that concerned about his safety, he should probably have a bodyguard around him who can roll around with a registered gun in California. It's probably a good idea. I don't know. That's as far as I'll get into that. But he's going to get a big bag in December. But the issue I have is when a big bag awaits these guys, it almost paralyzes them in a way. It's like that with Bivol right now. It's like, you know, I fully think as manager, they couldn't have really believed that Munguia was going to come to the table. They couldn't have really believed that. And they're throwing out names, Munguia. They couldn't have really believed the Beterbiev fight was going to happen because none of these guys are acting like they want that undisputed fight. I'm sorry. Like, the blame goes to all of them. They could have made that fight many times over, and that's another narrative that has fallen to death. What are the narratives that have collapsed and died when it comes to Canelo? One, he wants to fight Bivol at 168 to drain him. Two, he's ducking Benavidez. Stupid. That's probably the dumbest one of all. You know, three, there's so many of them. There's so many of them that have died. It's hard to keep up with. But three, he's holding up undisputed at 175. He's doing no such thing because Bivol is free to do whatever he would like. Canelo did not enact the immediate rematch clause. People are acting like he's handcuffing Bivol and trying to bring him to the ring. That's not what's happening. Bivol is free to go wherever he would like. And if he does, Canelo's got many other options. But Bivol is behaving like a guy with no options, and he's behaving like a guy who simply wants the bag and does not want to mess it up. And that's frustrating when you watch and see, and you watch him, and he looks like a top 5 pound-for-pound guy. He looks like a guy who's the most versatile fighter in the sport, great defensive fighter, and you say this guy can beat anybody, but he's not right now behaving like a guy who can beat anybody so far in 2023. And Canelo continues to move like Canelo. Going into the year, we spoke about this. Ring Magazine, top 10 pound for pound. ESPN, top 10 pound for pound. BadLeftHook.com, pound for pound. He's the first pound for pound fighter in the top 10 fighting in calendar year 2023. He continues to move like a fighter with nothing to lose. He continues to move like a fighter who's hungry. Imagine that. He'll go 3 years where he makes 300 million plus, and he's acting like a fighter who's hungry. He's acting like a fighter who hasn't gotten the bag. And it's frustrating to see fighters, they got a bag in front of them and they get paralyzed. Going back to Deontay Wilder, by the time he fights in December, it'll be 14 months since he last fought. It's been 13 months since Errol Spence fought. The Bud Crawford fight is right there, and then they get paralyzed. Why is this? Money magnifies, man. It magnifies. You appreciate the fighters who act like they're broke when they've got everything. This dude is riding damn white horses on the beach. Who the hell does that? This dude's talking about going on the PGA Tour after he boxes. But he's still moving like a fighter who has nothing. Still the hungry fighter from 10, 15 years ago. And I'm saying, why would you not appreciate that as a boxing fan? Why would you not reward that as a boxing fan? Don't you want to see champions? Don't you want to see dudes at a certain level still behave that way? So many times throughout recent boxing history, we've gotten fighters go to a certain level and then they become once-a-year fighters. They start behaving like Marvin Hagler used to talk about, guys sleeping in satin sheets. Errol Spence, just paralyzed, not fighting. 13 months. By the time Deontay Wilder fights again, it'll be 14 months. Why? Because there's a big bag there awaiting him. He fought Helenius last. Helenius. He had 30 seconds of action, fellas. 30 seconds of action. And he's going to need a 14-month break from that. I'm glad he's going to get his bag. I'm glad he's going to get 50 million plus. But just because you're getting 50 million plus, it's the contrast we talk about, right? Canelo has 50 million plus awaiting him for Bivol, but he's going to fight Ryder before it. He's going to make 50 million there too, 40, 50 million there. But he's gotten that for a reason. These other guys have a $50 million bag awaiting them. You're not going to see them. You're not going to see them. You'll see them on Ellie Seckbach interviews. Reporting. Deontay. And I guarantee you, one of the first people trying to bail Deontay Wilder out of jail was Ellie Seckbach. It happened in LA, right? Ellie's probably like, Deontay, I'll be right there. He needs to get his content. 78 Sports TV is probably calling from Alabama or wherever he's from. Deontay, you okay? You sure you okay? He needs his content. But 14 months, man, you could have had a fight in between that. You didn't have to wait for that bag. Just fight anybody. Just fight anybody. But it goes back to the expectation we talk about, right? Is Canelo can fight this guy up here, John Ryder, who happens to be a number 6 guy in the division, top 5 contender, and it's going to be poo-pooed. People are going to find something wrong with it. And it gets even worse than that. I mean, he can say, I'm going to fight the top guy at 175, the top 5 or 6 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport next 4 months later, and they'll still poo-poo that. They'll still claim that he's ducking someone else. With a style he's never ducked. Expectations. The expectations are higher. But you got to be honest about why the expectations are higher. Setback. PBC champs are a joke, and they're all inactive, man. Activity. You got to have activity. It goes to the bottom, the foundation of the sport, and why the foundation is broken is You know, we have pay-per-view events and we treat the undercards as if they're just a foregone conclusion. It's something we got to give the boxing fans to just put something together, whatever. UFC does the opposite. They're building these guys up through the undercards. Boxing's gotten away from that. It's a foundational issue. And when we have guys get to a certain point, and you'll see this stuff. Nobody wants to see Alvarez, Ryder, trash fight, and that's fine. But once again, it goes back as opposed to what? What are his peers doing? You know, you'll have, and I've talked about this, you'll have guys like that, like domestic level boxing fans. And I've talked to some of these guys. Some of these guys would have told you that Dillian White was going to knock somebody out, right? I'm just throwing that out there. But domestic level boxing fans, they don't have knowledge of what is going on around America. They don't know anything about John Ryder. They're not going to care to know anything about John Ryder. They're going to call him trash. They're going to call him a Eurobum. They'll ignore top 5 contender. They'll ignore 60,000 fans in Mexico. They'll ignore not putting it in proper perspective. They'll say things like nobody wants to see it. Well, 60,000 people disagree with you. And hundreds of thousands of people buying the pay-per-view disagree with you. They won't put it in proper perspective as to one and one last year, lost to Bivol, put the trilogy to rest with an injury, and coming off of an injury, he's still fighting within 8 months of his last fight while his peers are inactive. We talked about the pound for pound list, right? You have Errol Spence ahead of Canelo Alvarez. You have Errol Spence ahead of Dimitri Bivol. Dimitri Bivol, in the span where Errol Spence did not fight, had 2 fights, became Fighter of the Year 2022. Canelo Alvarez went 1-1, his only loss against the top 5 or 6 pound for pound guy, and somehow they value the guy who did nothing. And I think that's the modern boxing fan, right? That's become the modern boxing fan. Is a lot of them, particularly the American boxing fan, they're domestic level fans. They're still stuck in the old days where European fighters are Eurobums. They're trash. Stuff like that. They're still stuck there. They're still stuck in the old days. They're still stuck there. But it clouds judgment. Their picks for fights are off because of it. It's just not good. But it goes back to track record. It goes back to as opposed to what? The beautiful thing about Canelo is if this isn't the fight you want, you're still getting an elite top-level fight in 4 months. You're going to get the Benavidez fight. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. It's a beautiful thing about it. This dude behaves like he's broke. He behaves like he's broke. Besides riding white horses on the beach wearing tight-ass golf clothes, he behaves like he's broke. As opposed to his peers who, Tank Davis, I keep throwing him out because he's the most obvious example of it. The Benavidez in his fans, obvious example of it. Benavidez and his fans act like they've arrived. They act like they've reinvented the wheel. We beat Caleb Plant. Now they got bass in their voice. Now they're walking around with their chest out. We beat Caleb Plant. We beat Caleb Plant. How dare you ask us to do something else? How dare you? How dare you? And, this is the mind-numb robot way of thinking right here. It's the puddle of mush in their heads. It's just you have to. It's the example I bring up, right? They start off somewhere and they have to bend the truth to keep it at that place. They have to. They're just not intelligent. And these are the same, like I said, these are the same fans who will say stuff like Dillian White's going to knock out Tyson Fury. But it's hatred blinding people. Nobody in their right mind, nobody, would say something like Canelo Alvarez. With any type of intelligence, will say Canelo Alvarez is ducking David Benavidez. Doesn't add up. David Benavidez would have gotten the Canelo Alvarez fight a couple years ago had he kept his nose clean. Had he not dropped the $10 million bag on the scale. And this is it. JC brings up something else we've all noticed is they adopt certain fighters for the time in their anti-Canelo war. So David Benavidez is just their latest pawn, right? And they started this when they really ramped this up when the Caleb Plant fight was signed because they saw where that was going, right? They saw where that was going. So they had to build up David Benavidez as the boogeyman because they knew Canelo was about to clean out the division. And once again, they'll project their stuff onto other people. They'll say stuff like, oh, get off his meat, blah, blah, blah. No, we're just pushing back on your projection. Is nobody with any type of boxing intelligence will say something like Canelo Alvarez is ducking David Benavidez. It's stupid. I'm sorry. It's stupid. You're dumb. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. For years, these same people have said Canelo Alvarez ducks lateral movement, ducks movers. When he was at 168, there's no way he's going to fight Billy Joe Saunders. There's no way he's going to fight Caleb Plant. Those guys are white chocolate. Until he signs with them. Then they're Eurobum. It's stupid. It's stupid. I mean, just stuff that everybody knows, like cleaning out a division. Everybody knows what cleaning out a division means. Everybody knows. You got all the belts, you clean out the division, and then you defend what you have. Simple. But once again, it's moving the goalposts constantly because these aren't serious people. This is between you and I. Between you and I. These aren't serious people. They're not serious. If Canelo fought Bivol at 175, what do they say? We know. We know. If he fights him at 168, what will they say? We know. If he fights him at all, what are they going to say? He's ducking the guy with the style that Canelo would rather fight to fight the guy that already beat Canelo 9 to 10 rounds. They don't know what cleaning out a division means. They don't know what a duck is because a duck specifically has a meaning. A duck is what? What? Who in their right mind is going to claim that Benavidez is a better fighter than Dimitri Bivol, particularly a better fighter with the style that's tougher for Canelo Alvarez? It's stupid. These people aren't serious. They're not serious. They're not serious people. No matter what he does, they'll find something wrong with it. And that's what being the face of boxing is. And that's what comes along with the bags. I'm not going to sit here and play the small violin for Canelo because that's what comes along with it. You got to deal with the narratives coming from the short bus people. You got to deal with it. There's a lot of short bus boxing fans on YouTube. There are. And you got to deal with it. That's part of what comes with face of boxing. But we got to push back on those narratives. That's our job, to push back on the people who aren't serious. That way their short bus narratives don't take hold. We tried that. We tried that for years. We tried to let stuff like that go. And they'll fizzle out at some point, but then they, like gremlins, they just keep reproducing. It's like, where did all these people come from? How did all these dudes pop up? And those who know it the loudest know it the least, know it the loudest. It's easy, man. It's easy if you just sit back and look at it. And if you let that hate go, it's easier to analyze things as they go. But certain dudes had it in their mind a decade ago, I'm not going to like this dude. No matter what he does, I'm not going to like this dude. I'm going to bend the truth around him in order to make sure as many people as possible are as miserable as I am. That's what it comes down to when it comes to Canelo. And what I said the other day, what I said Monday, is there's a key difference between detractors and haters. Detractors, those are the people we can talk to. Those are the people we can talk to. The detractors will say stuff like, I don't like Canelo, but ... I don't like Canelo, but that dude's got a granite chin. He went 37 or 47 combined rounds with Golovkin and Kovalev. Dude's got a granite chin. I don't like Canelo, but that resume, good Lord. I don't like Canelo, and I didn't think he was going to fight Golovkin, but he fought Golovkin 3 times. I didn't like Canelo, but he fought Mayweather in 2013. I didn't like Canelo, but he fought Trout. I didn't like Canelo, but he fought Lara. But instead, what are they going to say? What are they going to say? He lost to Lara. He lost to Trout. He lost all those fights. He lost all the fights to Golovkin. He's got a trash resume. He's ducking Benavidez. He's ducking B-Ball at 168. It's never going to be good enough for them. They're trash. They're trash. Awful people. And we're not going to continue to hold up the classroom for those people. You don't hold up the classroom for the slow learners. You don't hold up the classroom for the slow people. So we'll just point out where they're wrong and we'll keep it moving. But this is a good fight. 168, top 5 contender. And it's sandwiched in between Bivol, Golovkin, and Bivol again. And if Bivol messes up the bag and doesn't come to the table, fight Benavidez. And the Benavidez crew will get their fight. Unless Sampson says something like, we're not going to the zone. He needs to cross the street. Canelo's the only megastar that's asked to cross the street. I've noticed that as well. I've noticed that one as well. They're dumb. Canelo derangement syndrome. Canelo derangement syndrome is a real thing. So it's, you just leave it around. You leave it alone, JC, because it's a teachable moment. These people really do exist. They really do exist. They're really there. It's not a made-up thing. They're really out there. They really try to push these things. Their brains are broken. Canelo derangement syndrome breaks your brain. And the sad thing about Canelo derangement syndrome, CDS, is they don't know they have CDS. They don't know they have it. They don't know. Like the slow learners don't know they're slow learners. They don't know that they're holding up the classroom. They seem to be the one. They seem to think they're the ones that think they're the smart ones, the intelligent ones. And I got to go over this again. It's like you're not a fan of the fighter. You're a fan of the actions of the fighter. So you're a fan of the fighter by extension. What do you want to see more of? Do you want to see more of 5-year marinations? Because if you do, nut hug Benavidez more. Hold on to those nuts. Oh, Mexican monster, you are being ducked by Canelo. Mexican monster, we beat Caleb Plant. You finally beat Caleb Plant. Oh, I need to hold on to those Mexican monster nuts. Oh, let me hold on to them. Do you want to see more marinations? Do you want to see more guys a decade into their career with one top 5 win? Do you want to see more of this right here? Do you want to see more of this from your face of boxing? If so, praise it. Reward the behavior. It's simple. It's simple. Reward the behavior you want more of. And push back on the behavior you don't want to see. I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to be one of those brain dead boxing fans who calls a dude the Mexican monster when he throws like 30 punches per round for the first 6 rounds against Caleb Plant and acts like he's a great pressure fighter. And then praises him for beating Canelo Alvarez's leftovers. And here's the beautiful thing is if you are an educated, genuine boxing fan, is you always leave the door open that these fighters can surprise you, can change course, and then you become a fan of those fighters. Then, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Tank Davis makes a 180, fights Devin Haney, doesn't force him to learn Spanish, fights Lomachenko, fights a Shakur Stevens, any of those guys, I'm a fan. Here I am. I'm here. I'm a fan. I'll even go to the fight and support him. Same thing with David Benavidez. David Benavidez goes on a run where he fights Plant, Morrell Jr., a Charlo, a Boo Boo Andre, any of those guys, and fights Canelo. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I'm not one of those crazy fans of boxers. Canelo Alvarez loses to Dimitri Bivol. I had my scorecard was wider than the actual scorecards. I thought Bivol won 9-10 rounds. And I praised Bivol after the fight. Nando can attest. I became Dimitri Bivol's biggest fan, fighter of the year. But a guy like somebody in the chat will start to bend the truth when stuff like that happens. And those are the slow learners. Those are the guys in the back of the class that you don't slow down the classroom for. You don't slow down the classroom for those people. Let's see what we got. He's Ecuadorian. Becoming undisputed, beating 3 champions, and is literally clearing. It's not going to matter. Team Batman Boxing. It's like you point this stuff out, like I said, to push back on the narratives, but you don't slow down the classroom for these people. Let alone being at the 3rd weight class they unified in. Crazy to say he needs to fight a guy whose best win is Plant. Seriously, I don't remember anyone calling for Floyd to fight. Keith. And as JC brought up, is these dudes aren't fans of Benavidez. They're not. And I pointed that out 2 years ago, is they're not fans of Charlo. They're not fans of Andre. All these guys are dispensable to them, just like Caleb Plant was dispensable to them. Caleb Plant was the big guy. He was ducking when he wasn't even in the division. Billy Joe Saunders, they'll never go up and fight those guys. He would never try to become undisputed. Then Golovkin, the same thing. Golovkin was the guy they adopted until they didn't. Now Golovkin's a bum too. Golovkin's a Euro bum too. You know, they'll adopt these guys temporarily and then discard of them when they don't need them anymore in their war against Canelo. That's what they do. And once again, I don't feel sorry for Canelo at all. It's what you got to deal with. I'm not personally emotionally invested in this dude. What I'm personally emotionally invested in is what's best for the sport. And what's best for the sport is if you praise the fighters behaving like fighters. And you don't nut hug the fighters who are simply doing the bare minimum and don't care enough about you to do it again. I'm not going to sit here and praise a dude who beats Ryan Garcia and then his trainer comes out here and says, Shakur's got to get his numbers up. Devin's got to get his numbers up. Lomachenko's got to get his numbers up. No, don't. Fight Duck Golovkin for 3 years. What is this? What is this? I hate to break it to people, but I'm a Golovkin fan. Chicano Prophet, Nando, they can attest to this. They've been disgusted by that in the past. But Duck Golovkin for 3 years. Who are these people? What is this? Remy in the building. A little birdie said that you were disrespecting us Mexican Americans from California that we carry guns everywhere, even holster with a baggie over them while you ain't lying. No, I've been to California before, and that's not what I'm talking about. There's a lot more regulation there. So I'm used to carrying around. I'm used to seeing people in South Louisiana just with guns out. And we buy trucks. Like I have a truck I bought with the gun safe in the middle. Like that's a normal thing. So it's weird to see, but you respect those cultures, right? You respect going to California and you gotta, I don't have to register a gun in Louisiana, but in California you do, and you got to respect that. But Deontay Wilder's going to get off, man. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. Let's see what we got. L. Devin Haney, Senior Al Heyman. Like I said, that's what Devin needs to be doing. Me llamo es Devin Haney. Yo quiero el rehydration clauses. ¿Cómo se dice en español Reggie Champion? ¿Cómo se dice rehydration clause in español? They're in the back of the classroom eating crayons. There's a lot of crayon eating, and apparently a couple of them stumbled upon my chat today, my generally high intelligent chat. A couple of them stumbled upon with the narrative, but I'm glad, like this is an example that I needed to show. We just simply use these people to show you the example that these people are out there. Like these dudes with no boxing brains are out there. And they'll just say the dumbest things and they'll be so confident about it. And for me, it'd be fine other than my enemies are the people stopping me from getting good fights. It's the power brokers, but more so now, it's not the power brokers because I know who those dudes are. It's more so now the people who parrot their talking points. It's more so now the people who act, the managers, the people who act like the power brokers who are not. They're simply supposed to be acting in the better interest of boxing fans, and they're not. It's like D-Style. He threw this out there, and he's correct in his assessment of this. He's brought this up. He's correct in his assessment of this. It's very much these dudes don't have access to Canelo, but they'll have access to Benavidez. They'll have access to Sampson. They'll have access to Boo Boo Andre. They'll have access to Charlo. So they'll carry their water. They'll carry their narratives for these fighters and for their teams. And they'll do it at the expense of a guy behaving like a fighter. They'll do it at the expense of boxing fans. And that's what bothers me. That's who I've declared war on at this point. The people pushing these narratives. It's like these are just stupid narratives. And I just want to reach out to these dudes and say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? What is in it for you? Why are you doing this? Why don't you just let go of the hatred? Drop the hatred. You don't have to continue to bend the truth just to say that this fighter that you don't like sucks. Just to do it at the expense of boxing fans. Exactly why few willing to take risks like Canelo has done consistently for a decade. He dumped the belt when GGG was his mandatory, and guess what he did right after that? He fought him. Then he fought him again. Then he fought him again. I don't know what to tell you. He fought that fight within 18 months of becoming lineal. I was right there with you at the time. This is my point. I was right there with you. My guy Miguel Cotto was doing the same thing Sergio Martinez was doing and saying, this guy ain't worth the risk. They asked Miguel Cotto about Gennady Golovkin after he won the lineal title. When he was fighting, when he created his own weight class at 155, and it pains me to say this because I'm a Miguel Cotto fan. I'm Miguel Cotto's biggest fan, but you got to call these dudes out. It's like, no, we got 17 weight classes. You don't create another one at 155. And they asked him about Gennady Golovkin in a post-fight press conference, and all of a sudden he doesn't know English. No. Like Gennady Golovkin. It was like Voldemort. You ever seen Harry Potter? Voldemort's name does not, you don't bring up the name. They act like he doesn't exist. And that was Gennady Golovkin at middleweight. Until Canelo Alvarez wins the lineal title off of Miguel Cotto. What happens? Yes, they strip him. But what happens? Within a year and a half, he fights him. Had Miguel Cotto been the champion, had Sergio Martinez been the champion, Gennady Golovkin would have never gotten a shot at Lineal. That dude right there gave him a shot at Lineal. Then he gave it to him again. Then he fights him again. I don't know what to tell y'all at this point, man. Like I don't know what to tell y'all. They were saying all kind of stuff, JC. Like it's just it's like this stuff right here. It's mind-boggling, but it's hilarious at the same time. What do? We just laugh at it. We laugh at it because these aren't serious people. They're hilarious. And I'm glad they're around because we use them as an example as to, who the non-intelligent boxing fans are. Because this is easy stuff. These are litmus tests. It's like I said when, Errol Spence versus Bud Crawford fell through last year. It's an easy litmus test. You should know why this fight fell through if you're an intelligent boxing fan. There are litmus tests out there, right? And there's another thing I love about Canelo is he gives you the litmus tests. They're easy. When me and D-Style saw right after the Bivol fight, the day after that people were saying, oh, Canelo's going to fight him at 160. We knew it right away. They were doing it again. They couldn't just be happy that he lost. They were doing it again, setting up the next one. And it was Bivol was the one saying, I want to fight him at 168. They can't get out of their own way. They can't get out of their own way. It's hilarious. These things are easy. What up, Calix in chat, listening at work. Appreciate you coming through. Shoe Shine. Let's see what else we got. Let me get to some of these. Been neglecting the chat. Let's see. You're hilarious even when speaking facts. Let's see. There is a difference between a fan of boxing and a hater. For example, if Benavidez went to light heavyweight to fight Beterbiev and he actually beats him, haters will say he beat on an old guy. Exactly. That's a perfect example. Is, your intelligent, genuine boxing fans will say, damn, that's a hell of a win. Your intelligent boxing fans will say, if Tank goes on a run where he beats Ryan and he beats Devin, he becomes undisputed, then he does what he's supposed to do as a fighter. And you'll give him forgiveness. You'll give him a fight in between, like a Raleigh Romero or whatever. But if he goes on one of those runs where within a 5-fight span, he beats guys like Devin Haney and he beats a Shakur Stevenson, you say, damn, I'm a fan of that dude. I wasn't before, but here I am. Same thing with Benavidez. And it's easier to live in there because you don't have to bend the truth. You don't have to look stupid to intelligent boxing fans. You don't have to look like a short bus slow learner. You can step into a room full of intelligent boxing fans and have an intelligent conversation when you do that. When you're not bending the truth. Is if Benavidez goes on one of those runs, I could say, man, for 9 years, this dude was not behaving like that, but all of a sudden he is. I'm a fan now. He made the 180 I've been asking for. I've been asking for him to fight guys like Caleb, like Morrell Jr., like a Charlo. I've been asking Charlo to fight, period. But I've been asking for stuff from these fighters. Simply fight the fights. And at that point, we'll call Canelo out if he doesn't fight you at that point. If Benavidez goes on that type of run and Canelo doesn't fight him, we'll say, Canelo, wake up. You got to fight that fight. It's as simple as that. Yep, that's it. That's it. They were passing Sampson around like a joint. They were passing him around like $5 hooker. As everybody was getting the Sampson interview. And that's the part I don't get. JC is the part I don't get. It's the most hilarious part to me. And it's why we use these dudes as an example. Is they'll see something like Sampson come out and say, we marinated a fight that you wanted for 5 years. we lost our belt on the scale in the same time frame. We snorted some cocaine in between then as well. And as boxing fans, we'll see that and we'll be like, what the hell is going on here? What is this? Somebody should be pushing back on that, right? Like, what the hell is that? You're marinating fights for 5 years, losing your belt on the scale. Charlo's not fighting for 2 years. And these are the dudes. And it's what I go back to when I talk to a lot of these dudes are only they're only American domestic boxing fans. Is they'll see Canelo fight a John Ryder and they'll call him a Eurobum and a trash fight. And if you don't like the fight, once again, it's subjective. That's fine. That's what. But you're not going to sit here and call John Ryder a trash fighter because he's the only super middleweight with 2 top 10 super middleweights in 2022. While the other dudes were that you want Canelo to fight were doing nothing. So it's what I say, as opposed to what? Up until March, when Benavidez finally gets a win, we've been telling these dudes, fight somebody. Just fight somebody. Good Lord. Fight somebody. Anybody. Is that too much to ask? Just fight anybody? Fight somebody. Or when Charlo, fight. But these dudes will, at the expense of fighters who are actually doing things, John Ryder, Dimitri Bivol, they'll throw out names as opposed to those guys like Benavidez, Charlo, Andre, and say that Canelo's ducking these guys. I witnessed it last year when Canelo took the Matchroom deal over the PBC deal. These dudes were saying Canelo was ducking Charlo, 160 Charlo, 164 Errol Spence and Benavidez to fight Bivol. It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. Because no intelligent boxing fan who follows boxing globally would have had that thought. Golovkin didn't sign the contract twice, so Canelo fought twice. I don't know. Like, Remy, we're not going to help these guys. I'm a Golovkin fan. What we want to do is simply illustrate that they're out there, right? And you want to stop. The reason you want to push back on a little bit without holding up the class is you don't want it to infect other people. You don't want it to grow like a cancer. And for years in the YTBC, the strategy in dealing with this was leave those dudes alone. Just leave them alone. Let them be, let them put their helmets on and ride the short bus over there. It's fine. Just leave them alone and it'll stay over there, but it's infected everything. It just keeps growing and growing. So that's why you got to push back a little bit on these narratives. Because no intelligent boxing fan would believe this stuff. And they're doing it at the expense of boxing and its fans. And I'm fully aware, and I don't care about this point. Like, I'm fully aware that some dudes will come out and say, "Oh, you're hugging Canelo's nut," whatever. It doesn't matter. It goes back to what I said on Monday. Is there are certain people out there who will see somebody across the street that doesn't like them, and they'll go over there and explain to them as to why, no, you should actually like me. This is why, not there anymore. Not there anymore. I'll yell across the street, "You're dumb." And I'll double and triple down on what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is Canelo's great for the sport. What I'm saying is appreciate him while he's here. What I'm saying is you're absolutely stupid to think that this guy would duck a guy like David Benavidez. David Benavidez may end up winning the fight next year. Who knows? But Canelo lost to Mayweather. Canelo lost to Bivol. He's already proven he doesn't care if he loses the fight. He's going to keep moving. He'll take the chances. And you're going to toss that out the window to cap for guys who aren't willing to take the chance. You can't become great at anything. You can't separate that process. You can't become great at anything without taking risks. Mentally strong people and anybody who is great has to go through the fire. They have to take the risks. You're not going to point to Benavidez's resume and say this guy is great because he hasn't done anything great. I'm sorry. You're not going to show me his resume and show me a guy that would be ducked by a high-level guy who is taking risks. It's stupid. Hopefully I don't make an ass out of myself. Bivol has been hurt before. That Canelo's only chance to win the rematch. He does. He outskilled Bivol plus minus stats. Shoeshine, I tend to think that Bivol's all wrong. All wrong for Canelo. But you're not going to tell an alpha to let it go. You're not going to tell an alpha when somebody comes in his driveway and keys his car to just let it go. It's not going to happen. Like I hate to break it to you. And this is where we separate from the short bus riders when it comes to Canelo. Is they'll see Canelo not fight Benavidez, and of course they'll pounce on that, right? Oh, he's ducking Benavidez. What we see is he's fighting Bivol at the expense of Benavidez right now. Why? Because his track record proves he can't let anything go, man. He can't let it go. Him and Mayweather still take jabs at each other a decade later. Still. Canelo was talking about Mayweather earlier. He can't let things go. He can't let another dude get the better out of him. So that's where we have common ground, is we all want to see the Benavidez fight. Where we separate as to why we're not getting it right now in September. And oh, by the way, Benavidez is a 3-fight deal. Sorry to break that to you too. I don't know what to tell you. But he's simply fighting that fight. And it's hard for a lot of modern day boxing fans to understand this. It's weird to them. It's foreign to them that somebody would actually behave like a competitor. It's foreign to them. They don't get it. They're so used to seeing Tank Davis only fight vulnerable Hispanic fighters, or Benavidez fight a 50-year-old David Lemieux. And then you'll have the stupid, unintelligent boxing fans carry water for him while he's doing that. They'll see unintelligent boxing fans watch Sampson say, we marinated a fight for 5 years, and it doesn't affect them at all. Like, how can you watch that? How can you watch a manager say, we purposely didn't give you a fight you wanted for 5 years, while we lost our belt on the scale, while we were sniffing cocaine like Scarface, and you're still calling for me to get a big fight with Canelo? And it's not that they're calling for the fight because we all want to see the fight. It's they're going to cap for this dude. They're going to build this dude up as the Mexican monster and say that Canelo is ducking him. It's hilarious. I'm glad those people are out there. This is the par for the course for the guy at the top. They said Floyd fought guys out of their prime or when they were too green, but they forgot he was doing it at 36, 37 when he was out of his prime too. Ringside Reporter, best in the business. There, by the way, Ringside Reporter Live. They're the best in the business. But the reason I love this comment right here is I was a Mayweather detractor. A detractor, not a hater. Is a Mayweather detractor, for example, can look at his resume and say, damn, that's a great resume. But a Mayweather detractor also will say that could have been better had he fought Pacquiao 5-6 years earlier. The 8-year anniversary was yesterday of Mayweather Pacquiao. And the issue with that is it should have been 5-6 years earlier. And why wasn't it? Is when Mayweather saw Pacquiao knock out Hatton, batter Cotto, he went from being agnostic on PEDs to being Nancy Reagan. This dude became a poster boy for a PED crusader while he had fighters in his gym popping dirty for PEDs. And publicly, he was acting like Nancy Reagan. Say no to drugs. We can't have drugs in boxing, blah, blah, blah. And it held up the fight for 5-6 years. We see stuff like that and we say, that's a great resume, but it could have been better. That's the difference between a detractor and a hater. A Canelo detractor It's always the but ... The detractor has the but ... at the end. I don't like that guy. I don't like that he looks a little funny sometimes riding white horses on the beach and wearing tight ass golf clothes. But, and he's kicking boy bands out of Sweet 16 parties. But that damn dude can fight. That dude fought Mayweather when he didn't have to. His own promoter was saying, don't fight Trout, don't fight Mayweather, don't fight Lara, and he's fighting the fights. His own promoter is saying, don't fight Golovkin, and he fights Golovkin 3 times. That's a detractor. 47 rounds with Golovkin and Kovalev combined without getting knocked down. That's a hell of a chin. That's a detractor. A hater will bend the truth all around Canelo Alvarez just to keep whatever it is that they decided they wanted to keep going for whatever reason. And that's why we call them the short bus riders. We can't put we can't even put our hands on why they act that way. I can't even, like some of the stuff I've seen in the chat today, I can't even wrap my head around why people would behave that way at the expense of great fighters and boxing fans by extension. It's weird. It's weirdo behavior. Just tell the truth. All you gotta do is tell the truth. And I can tell the truth with Mayweather. I'm a detractor because I think the resume could have been greater, but it's great. I think that dude would have beat anybody at any time. But at the same time, don't tell me that Mayweather-Pacquiao wouldn't have been different 5-6 years ago, because there's a reason he froze that fight. That's a detractor talking. Is I can be honest about why I'm detracting on Mayweather. It's because I think he's greater than everyone else. Cotto has that resume. Insane. Margarito has that resume. Insane. But it's Mayweather. We expect more. Why do we expect more of Mayweather than Cotto, than Margarito, than a Paul Williams? Why? Because we think he's greater. And this is the issue, wrapping back around to Canelo Alvarez, is these dudes, one or two of them in the chat, you know, they'll hear this stuff and they can't understand it. Like they can't be honest about why they're saying this stuff about Canelo Alvarez. It's simply because they think greater things of him than of Benavidez, than these other guys. Benavidez should go up in weight class, fight better, Biev and Bivol. Canelo would have no choice, but that won't happen. It won't happen because, and look, we don't expect it to happen because, once again, we don't expect great things of Benavidez. We don't. Like, Benavidez looked good against Plant. He looked good. He looked like a good fighter. That Mexican monster you told me about, he wasn't there. They were trying to build this narrative that Canelo is sitting in Guadalajara, Mexico, and like watching it with his wife. He's watching Benavidez fight Plant, and he's like, oh my God, the Mexican monster, we can't do this. This is insurmountable. He's going to rape and pillage our village. We can't do this. We can't do this, honey. I can't fight this fight. It's just simply not the case. Nobody on Canelo's side, none of Canelo fans are afraid of Benavidez. None. It's non-existent. It's another made-up theory just out of thin air. Nobody is afraid of that dude. It's just not, man. Like, he didn't look great against Plant. I'm sorry. He certainly didn't look like a monster. He was a pressure fighter throwing 30 punches per round for the first 6 rounds against Caleb Plant. Didn't stop him. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you with your trash-ass narratives. I'm sorry. They want to flood the zone with all this nonsense to where you finally give in. No, I'm sorry. I'll sit here and take it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Nobody's afraid of that dude. Nobody. Nobody was ducking anybody with that, Remy. At the end of the day, Canelo and Golovkin fought a trilogy, a meaningful trilogy, that did 27 million live gate, 23 million live gate, 18 million live gate. They made a crap load of money off of each other, and they enhanced their legacy, both win or lose. Why? Because they behaved like fighters, and people respected them like real fighters. Top pound for pound guys going at it, legacy defining, belts on the line, lineal on the line. It was real. It was organic. And, you know, maybe it won't. Maybe it won't happen. I don't know. You see, I mean, it's just, good Lord, man. I put these comments up because it's teachable. It's just, good Lord. Over marinating. You don't over marinate fights. You just simply put the fights on when they belong. That was the big lesson we had. That was the lesson we had with Tank versus Ryan. Traditionalists or be mad at 1.2 million buys. Traditionalists might be mad at 22.8, but what I'm telling you is they simply gave you the fight when it was supposed to happen. It's another teachable lesson. Give us the fights when they happen. I don't want to hear marinating fights 5 years. I don't want to hear marinating fights 3 years. I don't want to hear marinating fights 2 years. Just simply put them on when they belong. Ovulating. Floyd stalled. He over marinated. Floyd was trying to fight when he was 18. You know that I don't know about, but yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And I mean, this is beautiful. I've never seen somebody go 0% from the free throw line. It's amazing. But here we are. A lot of casuals stopped watching boxing after Pac Mayweather. I don't blame them. And that's the brown Mexican brings it up. It's like we were on the front lines of that. As Mayweather and Pacquiao and some of the new age boxing fans will see that and see 4.6 million. Oh my God, look at all we did. 74 million in revenue. Oh my God. What it is that fight likely does the same 5 years earlier. And if it does not, guess what? You still have a rematch. You still have a trilogy. By that point, you over marinated that fight so long that already the public was on edge. And then when you put on that type of a performance against each other, it's a lose. It's a lose for the boxing fans. And we had to be there as hardcore boxing fans amongst a bunch of casuals just looking at us like, this is your sport? This is your sport? And that should have been a lesson for us is going forward, no, we're not marinating fights anymore. We're not over marinating fights. We're not marinating a fight as small as Plant Benavidez for 5 years. We're not doing it. We're not doing any of that. And hardcore boxing fans should be disgusted when they hear marination. Hardcore boxing fans should hear an interview like that and say, ugh, what the hell is that? Why would I cheer for that fighter? Despite how limited you think a fighter is, if that fighter's taking the chance and if that fighter's fighting the fights, we respect that fighter. It's easy. It's simple. You're overcomplicating it. That's what the power brokers do all the time. They'll come out publicly. We can't make this fight because this guy's with this guy and that guy's with this guy and the networks. And then, oh my God, it's what Ness was saying on the Boxing Voice. It only becomes an issue when there's risk involved. When you bring up Devin Haney's name or Shakur's name or Lomachenko's name, all of a sudden, there's big obstacles in the way of Tank and these guys. When it's Hector Luis Garcia, nah. This is easy. It's simple stuff. They brainwashed you. And the tough thing with brainwashed people is they don't know they're brainwashed. They'll think you're brainwashed. Low information people don't know they're low information people. That's what makes it difficult. So we just use them as examples. That's what we'll do. Benavidez couldn't KO Plant, and someone thinks he has something for better PF. Floyd actually said there's too many belts and should make his own belt to solve the problem. Mosley really hit him hard. And look, that's the thing with Floyd again, is we talked about the hypocrisy, right? When he was Nancy Reagan and he was say no to drugs, he had fighters in his own camp. And then they had the whole Hammond USADA being a little touchy-feely with each other, right? One thing publicly, one thing for everybody else. Another thing for me is the same thing with Floyd when it comes to belts. They'll promote Tank Davis as a legit 3-division champion publicly and then say there's too many belts in boxing. The fighter only has Reggie belts and they're promoting him as a champion while they want everybody else to give up their belts. That's what it is. Stuff is hard. I mean, stuff is easy. It's not hard. Canelo ain't shit, then his peers around his weight really ain't shit. It's like I said, man, you do put it in better terms than me. I'll lob it up there for y'all and y'all spike it. This is beautiful. Like if Canelo ain't shit, then his peers definitely ain't shit. Like I don't know what to say. That's a great way to put it. Like if Canelo ain't shit, if he ain't cleaning up his division, then they really ain't cleaning up the division. If Canelo ain't shit, then these other dudes really ain't shit. Benavidez almost knocked himself out against Plant. Dude has no balance. Canelo dealt with cartel because of family kidnapping. You think he's afraid of a fake monster? Yeah, I know. Mayweather's greatness was a product of a boxing family. Between his father, uncle, and himself, they were very good at knowing the right time to catch someone. He ducked Paulie Spetafora. I wouldn't, I don't know about that. I don't know if he ducked Paulie Spetafora, but there were fights he could have gave us at a time. He should have given them to us, and he didn't. And that's my detraction of him. On that note, I'm out till tomorrow. Betting odds tomorrow. We'll talk about John Ryder as a fighter, who he is stylistically, and that fight stylistically. I'm out. God bless. Peace.